All right, go ahead.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I guess the first order of business is I have to read this statement. So, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, DLC 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the town website at https, with all the appropriate hashes, www.sturbridge.gov/town-administrator/pages/how-access-virtual-meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting, either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast or cable television on channel 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, enter 1428 # for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. This phone number is usually only active for the public during public meetings. No in-person participation of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post audio and or video recordings, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings on the town's website as soon as possible after the meeting. That's a mouthful.
It's remarkable.
Okay. So let me just get my notes here. So we have a number of departments scheduled for tonight, and I think if Becky's available, why don't we open with conservation?
Okay, I'm here.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Just for the record, this is Rebecca Gendro. I'm the conservation agent. So like Jim said, I'll be presenting the Conservation Department budget for fiscal year 21. If you've had a chance to review it, you can see that most line items haven't changed on here, starting with purchase of services. Training programs, lake testing, and legal ads are the same as last year. We haven't made any changes to those. We don't anticipate any. We did put in a request for consulting services for $5,000. So this is something new that we haven't had as part of our budget previously. Typically, these services could be included in the scope of a project, but sometimes there's instances outside of normal projects that come up that we're not equipped to deal with since we don't have any line items for these things. The scope of the services for the consulting services that we would anticipate that we might need would be engineering, like a third-party review of engineering, that type of consultation. Sometimes it might be having an engineer do survey work for us. Sometimes we need inspectional or monitoring services. And in addition, it could include like environmental services such as complex wetland delineations or reviews of things of that nature. Any questions on that? Or would you like me to keep going to the end and then ask questions?
Well, does anyone want someone to hold a hand up if they want to ask a question now? Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Just a quick question on $5,000. If that's some of that money is related to a project, a defined project where someone's coming before the Conservation Commission, will you recoup that cost in the fees you'll charge that person coming before you?
So this would be for something different. So most of the time when we have a project come in, during the application and review process, we do have the ability to ask for third-party reviews related to review of stormwater or wetland delineations. So this wouldn't be for those situations. The commission can at that time vote and request those services. This would be for instances, say we have something related to like a conservation property and we need to have a survey of the boundaries done. We could have that done at that time, or it might be for something that could be related to actions that we really need to have someone look at something. Maybe it could be related to some type of enforcement activity where we need to act quickly and get some feedback. And sometimes in those situations related to enforcement, those could be recouped through the process too.
Okay.
So I have a question then, Becky, because at least one instance comes to mind that I've observed in watching your numerous meetings, including the marathon meeting, which I didn't watch all of the other night. But so if you get into a dispute with an applicant, for instance, or you haven't taken an action, and they have an expert, and you have an expert, and there's a debate, that's where this money would come into play, where you'd have to get a legal opinion, so to speak, to resolve the dispute?
Correct. That could be one of the instances, yes.
Okay, because I've seen a couple of those in recent months. Okay, and I see our chairman is with us.
Yes, finally, right?
Okay. I did have one thing that I wanted to ask before you continue, Becky, while I'm thinking about it. I had asked you about this, and it's regarding the additional hours. So they're going to be funded through the conservation through the Wetlands Protection Account. So there's 5 additional hours, but in our conversation, you brought up the fact that there were already 5 hours being funded that way.
Correct.
And I just, as a question to Jeff or maybe Barbara, if she's connected, I didn't realize this was already being done with 5 hours, and now that totals to 10 hours, which do not appear in the budget here. So where would these hours appear somewhere in the budget so that, for instance, I'll give an example. With the DPW director, we can find a substantial part of his pay is included in warrant articles for sewer and for water. But where does this additional $10,000 show up in the overall budget where you could put your finger on it in our book? So that's my question.
So it's not, I guess if you want me to answer it, where I can partially answer it, and if Barbara or Jeff want to add in. So this wetland protection fund that we have, that's in the control of the Conservation Commission, and the funds that go in there come from our state reviews. So any state application that we receive, notice of intent, notice of resource area delineation, the state breaks down the fee. A portion of it goes to the Commonwealth and a portion comes to us. So those fees get put into this separate fund that we track separately. It's not included in the general fund. And that fund is only allowed for like administrative purposes or sometimes enforcement purposes specifically related to the Wetland Protection Act. So we have to show that we, or the admin, her hours are related to purposes that directly relate to things for the Wetlands Protection Act.
So we can document that she spends 10 hours a week of her time on things that are associated with the Wetlands Protection Act?
Yeah, I think that
that.
you could show that. You have to really, look at, say, if you had a meeting, say a 7-hour meeting she sat in taking minutes, you'd have to kind of break that down. Obviously, some of these reviews we're looking at both Wetland Protection Act and our local bylaw, but I think that you could easily articulate, if you had to, that a good portion, more than half of her responsibilities are probably related to the Wetland Protection Fund. We've had some discussions, and I can let Barbara and Jeff, add into it too, that, there is funds available in there, and we've kind of looked at, could it continue? You want to keep a balance in there, and if we're taking too much out, that could be of a concern. So I don't know that this is a good long-term solution to funding that position. I would like, and I've asked, I would like full-time assistance So maybe it's something that can be reevaluated moving forward, and maybe it's something that starts to come out of the general fund, or a good portion of it does. I would like maybe, to consider for next year, maybe getting that position to a full-time position. So,
How much is in that fund, Becky? Do you know the balance?
I believe right now it's between $80,000 and $90,000, and I don't think that the department really ever used it that much outside of the last probably 5 to 8 years, maybe. I think the previous agent was the one when they started taking some funds out, when they actually think the admin position went from a clerk of 15 hours to 25 hours, and I think maybe that's where, it predates my time, but I think that's maybe where it started.
Okay. So let me jump back to Kevin's question, and the $5,000 that we put aside, did that come out of that fund as well? Consulting services, or will we have to interpret that?
There could be some that could come out of there for that, but it's specific to administrative tasks, and if something was related to an enforcement action for the Wetland Protection Act. So, and that's kind of like a two-part process. The commission would have to vote on the use, and then that would have to then be supported by the Board of Selectmen too. But I think that it would have to be only for an enforcement type action where it could be used.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
Joni has a question, Jim.
Okay, go ahead, Joni.
I thought you were fielding questions. I might as well jump in.
I am. I'm sorry. I wasn't
That's
looking
okay.
at the screen.
So again, going back to the $5,000. So this is due to the budget. It's at this time there's nothing specific for the $5,000 that needs to be spent. It sounds like you'll be setting it aside for engineering, monitoring, stuff like that comes up. So I'm just curious, after all these years, where has this been funded previously when these things come up? Because I don't recall seeing too many reserve fund transfers for conservation to cover such costs. And if it's something that's an everyday cost, I would have thought that it would already be in the budget.
So I can't speak for any times before I've been here. Since I've been here, we've had one situation where we've needed an engineer to assist us outside of the normal scope of review. And we actually we used money out of the DPW's budget for engineering for that because we didn't have anything to use. So they have like an engineering consulting line item, and we had to use it out of their budget.
So then I guess maybe perhaps Barbara can Barbara, have we paid for such costs for conservation like this previously? Because I can maybe remember a handful of times that we've had to fund something in particular for conservation over the years.
Yeah, in the recent past, like Becky said, we've used the engineering line out of the DPW budget as opposed to going back to the FinCom. And as she also stated, this is not something that happens all the time.
So then I guess, is there any reason that it should be funded? And I guess it's a two-part question. About how much were those, the situation that you mentioned was funded out of DPW recently, about how much was that?
Barbara, I don't know if you remember the total amount. It ended up coming out of 2 fiscal years, but I believe it was over or approximately around 3,000, between 3,000 and 5,000 it ended up being for those services.
Yeah, I think that's a good estimate.
And this came out of the DPW's purchase of services?
Yeah, there's an engineering line under the DPW also.
Okay. So then do they use that on a regular basis? We can talk about that when the DPW speaks, but I'm just trying to get a feel for, is this a necessary cost that will be spent in this year, or is it something that, it may or may not come up this year, and if it does come up, it is unforeseen. You could go back to the reserve fund transfer.
Jeff, did you want to weigh in, please?
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think one of the things we really need to focus on is having the right information to make decisions with. I think that's something we need to develop good habits with, and having the right expertise available for all these departments really truly helps us make better decisions and better recommendations to the boards and committees we support. So having these types of funds available to get the expertise that Becky needs to help her do her job and advise her commission and the Board of Selectmen if it's necessary, I think is important. And I think that's why we want to put this money in there, to have that expertise. We don't have an engineer, a licensed PE on staff. So getting the expertise we need is going to be one of those things where we have to seek it out and we have to pay for it.
Don't we have tie and bond on as the town's engineers?
We have several engineers we use, but each time we use them, we pay them. And Ty and Bond usually does sewer and water and other things. We have other on-call engineers that we turn to for different things, but at the end of the day, they all need to be paid.
This is Butch. I have something to add.
Go ahead, Butch.
Just this year, I didn't use my engineering money last year, so Becky used a lot of it. But this year, I have at least 2 very old drainage problems that are coming off from old developments where the developers dumped the water over the banking, and then houses were built recently in these areas. So we're now looking at these 2 areas, and I may need that money. So I just want to make sure that you know that it's not always available.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I take this as we don't have anything specific in mind. It's a small amount of money in case some issue comes up. But so $5,000 will make or break the overall budget? No. But in some areas, we're consolidating a lot of things into single line items. Like trash was one that we do. Electric is being consolidated. And yet this discussion says we've got a little engineering budget in DPW where it's always been. And conservation's used it in the past when Butch had some extra money available. The town administrator's got a special projects line item he's starting to fund this year. The same argument could be made. Police and fire might need a little consulting money to help with a special project. And so we start going back in cases like this and spreading these small amounts through the little budgets for water should they come down the road. So I understand you want some flexibility, and this was argued in earlier evenings that the town administrator, a pot of money to be able to manage this town on a day-to-day basis. But it seems like these are types of things that maybe kind of like the town council budget. They should all roll up into a pot of money that sits somewhere that could be spread among the departments as needed and controlled by town administrator or others manage that budget throughout the year rather than sprinkle small amounts to each department.
Madam Chair.
Jeff?
Yeah, Mike, I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. I think as we roll into next year's budget, I would like to come together with the different departments that use engineering services and maybe do an RFP for different types of services, so we have an on-call system that we don't, every time we need an engineer, we have to go back out for an RFP or, get quotes. We can have a group on call for 3 or 4 years and then do it again and again, but have that one pot of money where we can focus on that and have a select group of consultants that we know we can turn to for different expertise. But I agree with you 100%.
And I struggle, just to finish up, I struggle with these little ones. And again, few dollars here and there overall, why are we spending time talking about it? But, and we want a lot of detail in the budget, so we spend a lot of time going through that. But the schools come along, and we go the bottom line dollar to the school. The school administration spend it, move dollars among different accounts over there as need be throughout the year. We don't quite do that on the town side. So I feel that we're moving to, let's just figure out what the bottom line numbers for the municipal side is. It's $11 million. Look that, here you go. Let Jeff and the staff manage to that amount with some plan in mind. But we're not quite there yet. That's still a ways off. Anyway, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, did you have something?
Bruce, your mic is off.
I see you, Larry.
Becky, you said that it was 10 hours, the position?
For the admin, it would be
Yes.
would be 10 hours to come out of the Wetland Protection Fund. Currently, five of the 25 hours come out of that fund. Now this would be 10 out of the 30 hours.
Jim? And is it possible that you could do with less?
Less hours for the admin?
Yeah, so that's, 10 hours isn't very much to begin with.
No, I would prefer it to be a full-time position. I think, I know Jim has watched some of our meetings, and we have a lot of reviews in projects that we work on, and just being one full-time person in the department, it's hard for me to man the office full-time and be able to perform some of my other requirements, such as site visits and things like that. So having those extra hours is really important for us to be able to provide the services to the public. Either having someone in the office, even right now, it still would be a part-time position where the admin, when we have meetings and say we have a long meeting, those hours come out of her normal hours in the office. So it would allow us to do a better job providing services to the community and performing our functions that we need to do. So I really would like to have the extra hours. I think it's important and needed.
Becky, Larry, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want brief comment.
I'm sorry, you're not finished. Go ahead.
And that is to say that I want to tell you that we want the same thing. We would love to provide that, but the question is how are we going to afford it?
Yeah, but right now, the hours aren't going to come out of the general fund. They'll come out of our Wetland Protection Fund, so it's not really a change to the general fund for this year.
All set, Bruce. Larry, go ahead.
Further to Mike's and Jeff's earlier point, I'd like to suggest that very serious consideration be given to making a habit of being in the budget 2 or 2.5% labeled as a contingency. The budget for the town alone, not just education, is large enough to justify that. Some years, 2 or 2.5 be too little. Other years, too much. Over time, experience will show. But I do think that since the budget should be a plan, not a straitjacket, having a couple percent or so of a contingency would be a prudent thing to do from a purely straight-ahead efficiency management and task on time point of view.
Thank you, Larry. I want to point out one more thing, folks. You may not remember, or you may, but last year, so these 5 hours are being added this year. And last year, Becky, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we add 75 hours to your admin's time so that that wouldn't take away from her time in the office when she had to be at meetings, taking minutes and so forth? So I guess what I'm saying is this 5 hours this year is in addition to 75 hours total that we added last year. So we're crawling along here. We both have the same idea. So we're making progress. I think Jeff is open to keeping his mind open on this subject going forward, what we need, especially when he has to sit through those long 8-hour meetings himself. But we won't go there. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else want to be heard? Becky, do you have anything further to present? I think you were halfway down the page, but
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, if I just keep going. So under supplies, there's no changes for office supplies, the magazine subscriptions. We shifted the lake testing. We did the food remission. We moved that to supplies under the supplies column. So it's going to be supplies for lake testing program. So that way it can include things they need, ice and baggies and things like that too. What's new in this column, I did put a request in for a clothing allowance. Some of the other inspectional departments have a clothing allowance, so that we can have shirts. Kind of important to me would be something like a reflective coat. Mm-hmm. I do go out on a lot of site inspections. I've been on, in the high-speed lane of Route 84, there was a crash over there and an oil spill. It'd be nice to have a reflective coat for when I'm out on that or out, in the woods during times. It's also nice to have something that has the town emblem on it so people know if they see me that I do work for the town. In addition, even just having we have a couple in the office, but some reflective vests. The Conservation Commission members come out on site visits with me for upcoming projects. So, sometimes we're going to, sites that are in the woods and it's hunting season. We should have some reflective vests for them. Also new would be field supplies. We do have some things in the office, but we need things for doing wetland delineation. I don't have a spade, a basic shovel, things like that. So I'd like to be able to purchase some of those things. In addition, having, tick and bug spray available for us and for the members when we go out. Another thing that's important too is we don't have any hard hats. At least if we could have a couple for when I go out to construction sites, I should have, be meeting OSHA standards and have a hard hat. So I'd like to have at least a couple hard hats in the office. And then moving on to other charges, we don't really have any changes there. Just have a slight decrease. Oh, sorry.
Jim?
Yes, Larry.
Further to the point about suitable wearing in the field, I think Kevin will remember, it must be 9 or 10 years ago, the conservation agent possessed standard hip waders, a marked jacket, the full regalia. I guess over the years that kind of fell to the wayside. But it's pretty puzzling that the town sends somebody out ill-equipped to do important work. I don't see any reason not to just go out and buy the stuff as soon as it's approved.
Thank you.
Good point, Larry. Becky, you all set?
Yep. Well, we already talked about okay. So we already talked about the staffing request. The only other thing is in FY20, I asked for the reevaluation of the positions. The admin position, we had lost the previous one, and it was reevaluated at that time, and I'm really appreciative of that. So we were able to have that grade change so we can advertise it at a better rate. Which really helped with our candidate pool and for getting a good assistant for me in the office. So really appreciative of that. Understand that there's compensation classification studies underway, which will, if it's concluded will be implemented in FY21. So I think that covers everything in the budget request.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions now that I'm looking at the screen and I can see hands there? Okay, then I guess we have to call for a motion, and since I'm the liaison to conservation, I'll make the motion that we recommend to town meeting that they approve the budget as presented.
Kevin Smith seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, no discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with Kathy.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had a little discussion.
You had some discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm not sure who said it, but it sure sounded like other people are thinking about this future budgets and the road we're on and how we're going to fix it. And I think this expense is one that I have to say we have to push back. I totally understand that she needs the services, but I think that they just need to try to continue to do it the best, way they can fund it. But to add another 5,000 seems to me inadvisable. And I wonder if, Jim, you could explain more about their budget has increased rather rapidly.
I'm sorry, Bruce.
The budget the year before was also a pretty big increase. Right? Or am I reading that wrong?
No, you're right. So Jim, I think what Bruce is looking for went up 13,000 between fiscal year 19 and 20, and then it's gone up another 12,000 for fiscal year 21. And why the rapid rise in 2 years?
Well, I'll go back again and look, because it's been about 4 weeks since I looked at last year. We have to look at where the major increases are.
If I may.
Yeah, this is like, I think in the staffing side, this is one of those positions that has been getting, working its way up through the step system. And I would say that Bruce's point, well, I agree with that. I think right now we're setting the budgets, assuming we can afford everything that's in here and we're voting, but we're trying to identify as we go along areas that if we had to come back and trim this budget for some reason, we would trim. Bruce, this is probably one of those line items that we would focus on trimming back if we had to, but we're not necessarily trimming
Okay.
this.
But here's if you want to look at where the increases were from last year to this year, okay, outside of salaries, it's the $5,000. It's the $5,000 that's being added as a consulting services. The rest of it is in salaries and wages, which, excuse me, but we've gone from 80,000 to 87,000, so there's the rest of it, and that's really not something that we can go back, we can look at this year and say, oh no, we're not going to do that, because we're talking about 2.5% for the hourly person plus Becky's step and grade. So if the total increase is $12,000 and 7 of it is in wages and salaries, then the other 5 is in this 5,000 for the new item. Then the increase that we're talking about is not 12,000. It isn't. The number is 12,000, but the increase we can control is pretty much limited to that 5,000 figure. In my opinion, is if we want to debate it, the debate has to be confined to that 5,000, not to the 12,000, because 7 of it is beyond the discretion of this group.
No, it's not.
Go ahead, Bruce. No, Bruce has his hand up.
Thanks, Jim. That was really clear and concise. I'm sorry to say I don't think it's quite got me over the hump.
Right. But Bruce, Mike, you agree that the concern, our focus can only be on the 5,000. The rest of it, we can't go back and change.
I feel bad about that. It's not
Larry, you wanted to make a
fault that
comment?
they're, I'm sorry?
I think Larry had a comment as well.
Well, I'd rather not just repeat myself of why be poor times, but I do think that this is a good operation. It just is. Mike put his finger on it. We could have a cut list if the roof fell in. The roof hasn't fallen in. We can make a cut list. We can put a tick mark against the 5,000, approve the 5,000, make a U-turn if we have to, go back and look at all the tick marks and have a full-throated, full-hearted discussion then, if that comes to pass.
Yeah,
Devin?
Yeah, I guess mine is more of for Kathy coming out of this is just make sure, when we issue the memorandum of understanding coming out of the budget process, that we do add the idea that Mike and Larry both discussed is, let's talk about adding that engineering line item in the unclassified budget, for in going through and looking at all the departments that make use of this engineering services, and do the 2% of their department budgets, accumulate it, and put it in this line item, and just make sure we don't lose sight of that. And make sure we get that, the finance director and the PA and the Board of Select.
I just wrote a note.
Go ahead, Karen.
I think these line items keep coming up on giving some discretion to departments to be able to do their job. And I agree we need to keep track of it, but I think in the past it has forced the departments to be micromanaged, which has a cost to it, and we keep ignoring that cost. The time cost, the labor cost to come back and ask for money. I think it would be a good idea if we can push this budget through with these, and then next year we can look and see how much of this was used, and when we put together the category to put the engineering into, we can get a good idea and a good look at, was this effective? Did it help each department do the things that they needed to do? And most importantly, was it cost effective for the town?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I would just add to that, by voting the bottom line budgets we're doing, we are giving flexibility to each department. So that conservation doesn't have to spend $5,000 on consulting services. That could all of a sudden be the most expensive pair of waders and reflective vests that they need, because we're giving them the flexibility to move among services and supplies and other charges to give them the flexibility to manage. So while this is a budget and a plan going forward, it's not a handcuff, and they have to come back and spend money on it. There is some flexibility to manage throughout the year.
Sorry, Mike, thought you were done.
I'm done, thanks.
Okay. Joni?
Yeah, so I just want to echo with Bruce, right? I understand the thought around having an engineering line item or some sort of consulting fee line item in the unclassified based upon, a percentage of everybody's need. And of course, I don't think every department warrants such a consultation fee, to be honest. But like DPW, conservation, I don't know, fire, I don't know, whatever. That can be discussed. But honest to God, I really don't think that this is the year that we should be adding some stuff like this into the budget. I'm not saying it's not a bad idea. It sounds to me like your plan might be, Jeff, perhaps give the more flexibility to the department heads to control their finances, which is, yeah, fine. Give them all the power to do that. Great. And then maybe that eliminates the need to go back to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer. I personally don't see that the reserve fund transfer is an issue. I think it's a good use of our time to review such unforeseen costs and manage that fund. That said, this money, from what I've heard, last year we used an engineering fee, or we had an expenditure of about $3,000 that we were able to utilize from the DPW's budget, which was fantastic. We didn't have to come in for a reserve fund transfer. But I don't recall ever getting another such engineering charge from conservation in particular. So I'm just concerned, maybe concerned isn't the right word, but I'm just having a hard time around just suddenly getting a $5,000, bucket of money to use when you don't even know if there's something coming. Unlike what Butch said, that he knows he has a need for that money in his budget coming up soon. I appreciate all that. So, rant over. I'm not going to support the extra $5,000. I just don't think that this year is the time to do it. And also, I'm going to remind everybody, every meeting, that next year we are this close to being in the red, if you look at our forecast. Okay? And I think the economy is going to get hit hard with this COVID-19, and we need to be a little bit more diligent in that. Rant over.
Thank you, Joni.
Jim, you disappeared.
Your voice went.
Who seconded my motion, by the way? I didn't write it down.
Kevin did.
Kevin. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. There's a motion active right now. So, Kathy, you voted
Yes.
Bruce?
No.
Jared?
Yes.
Jared, yes?
Oh, I thought you said Karen.
No, I said Jared, but Karen's a yes. Jared?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni, need I ask?
Again, the answer is still no.
Larry?
Yes.
And Kevin, I assume you're a yes. Second of the motion.
Joni made a good argument, and Larry's 2.5% figure goes back to changing this to $2,500 because, a $100,000 budget. I said this at the beginning of the thing. I'm kind of with Joni, is if we don't have to fund something, we shouldn't fund it and then go back and remove it. Because next year is right. People are going to be hurting trying to pay property tax bills. I know it's a tiny bit of money, and it doesn't always, but all these little tiny bits and all these different budgets add up to a big number. And it used to be a rule of thumb, roughly, is $5,000 is a penny on the tax rate. And then if you start doing your sums out, it adds up. It adds up to real cost. So I'm going to end up voting no.
Jim?
Okay.
Jim?
Yes, Larry?
My comment on a contingency of 2.5% was on the total of the entire budget, and ever in the administration needed funds and could justify it, it would be drawn from that contingency if it was not already earmarked in the budget. It was not to say 2 or 2.5% for each budget or each line item. Take all the millions of dollars, take 2 or 2.5%, and then it's up for grabs on a justification basis. So that's not 5,000 suddenly getting its legs cut out down to 2,500. No, that's not what I meant. It's of the grand total.
That's what I understood you to say, Larry. Thank you. Okay, so Kevin, you're a no?
Yes, that's correct. No.
Bruce, do you have something you want to add?
Yes, perhaps Larry will comment on this. I totally forgot what I was going to say. I know what it was. Would the people that would be allocating the money be in place of a reserve fund transfer request that would come to us?
Who is the question for?
I think
Jeff might know too.
Yeah, no, the use of the contingency would still flow through the Finance Committee, of course.
So that sounds like it's a great discussion for the Finance Committee. It's probably not relative to this, applicable to this motion, and we should get to the end, but that's a great topic for us to have. And, not only how do you provide some money in there, but how do you have the appropriate controls so you know what it's being spent on and it's being reported out. And that'd be a great topic for us for a meeting unto itself to figure out how to manage that from a financial perspective. But not something we're going to do as part of this budget, this particular line item.
Okay, so I'm going to close the discussion because we had a motion, a second, we had a discussion, we're in the voting stage. The discussion should have been over by now. Right now, the vote's 4-4, and I'm voting yes, so the motion carries 5-4. On that note, I'll turn it over. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you. Thanks,
and
Jim.
I'll turn the meeting over to Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Jim, for taking over. I apologize for being a little late today. I believe the next person up is Leslie, if she's still there, Council on Aging. Leslie, you there? No, I saw you before.
Kathy, do you want me to?
And Larry, that is your department, yes.
Yeah, right.
Start.
All right. The Council on Aging Senior Center can be found in two places in the budget manual on page C10 in the blue tab, FinCom handbook, and on page 34 in the orange tab, detailed budget. I believe that the Senior Center, the Council on Aging, now has stability in leadership. It is not surprising that some years ago, with the retirement of a long-standing department head, that there would be in the wake some bumpy air for a while. That happened. There were a couple of major reasons, and they were not related to each other. They were not systemic. Nevertheless, the effect of a bumpy air in an aftermath following a long-term department head was present. That, I believe, is as over as it can be, and we now have in the current director, department head, I think, stability in leadership. Turning to the budget, year to year, there is a net decrease of $1,552, of which the decrease is accounted for $1,367 in salaries, net of a $75 increase reflecting longevity. Elsewhere in the budget, there is an annual $5 increase for the post office box, a introduction of a $190 item for a motion picture license, something that over the years seems to come and go, as programs will. We'll see that closing out is $400 for the Memory Cafe. The Memory Cafe began with a $4,000 grant from the Massachusetts Council on Aging and the Department of Elder Affairs, supplemented by private sector sponsorships. It began in June of 2018 and was conducted one time a month from then on. It is now closed out. You will see a $4,000 year-to-year, 4,000. That's not additive, that's repetitive, and that is for reimbursement of mileage of volunteers who drive seniors to their medical appointments and back. As far as I know, subject to anything that Leslie or anyone else has to say, that essentially covers the budget, and I am ready to make propose a motion when the time comes.
Okay, questions? Karen, any questions?
No question.
Bruce, questions? Bruce, I think you're on mute.
No questions.
Kevin?
No questions.
Mike?
All set, thank you.
Jim?
I'm good.
Joni?
I do. Around the Memory Cafe. So that was a grant, and it's no longer. So I guess why is that not continuing?
I think the grant lapsed. Leslie?
Your mic's off, Leslie.
On mute. No, you're on mute.
It's on your computer, not your phone, yeah.
Okay. Now can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Larry, for that presentation. I wanted to, so the previous director had requested $400, and when we went forward with doing the cafe, we found that there was no attendees and there was no use for the money any longer. So that's why we're not requesting it again in this budget.
Oh, so that's interesting. I was wondering that because I guess I was of the impression that it was a good program, and I know that other communities have this same Memory Cafe type program. So I guess is that not something that is worth pursuing?
So we are pursuing it with Charlton as a dual cafe, but we were attempting to do that this past April. Obviously, we didn't go forward with that because of the COVID, but we necessarily don't need funding for that. We're not looking for funding for that. But we did not have a large attendance when we did do the cafe. It's really aimed for people with dementia, and that's not how it was working in the center. So we're going forward with doing it with Charlton in the future, and we're going to trade off between the two senior centers. So we won't need funding for it.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jared, any questions?
No question.
I think I got everybody here. Anything further? If not, I'll take a motion from Larry.
I move the Finance Committee recommend to year 2020 annual meeting for the Senior Center the sum of $42,799.
Kevin Smith seconds.
Yes. All right, roll call vote. Larry?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Kathy, yes. So that passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Did we already do the senior center building? Let me check on that one before you leave.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
Yeah, I checked
Thanks,
that already.
Leslie. I meant to have checked that. Okay.
Are we doing the building?
We
Sorry.
did.
We did do it, I guess.
Oh. Okay.
Larry made the motion. I seconded it. It was 9-0.
Excellent.
That's good. That's good. I know Butch is on. Is Chief Grasso on? I don't know if I saw his name.
He is. He's here.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know who wants to go first. Butch, how about you?
Excuse me.
Here.
Larry or Jeff, what is Leslie's last name?
Wong.
Wrong. WONG.
Thank you. And this,
And I think, Karen, you are DPW, correct?
I am. Okay, so we're on page C9. And then on the detailed budget, I believe it's page D30. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I did chat with Butch for a bit on this budget. There's not a lot of changes, but a couple of things that I want to point out. If you go into purchase of services, you'll see that under machine maintenance and repairs and maintenance, those line items have been eliminated and they have been combined into a new line item for vehicle repairs and maintenance. Okay, one of the things that Butch and I talked about is he has been doing a lot of repairs on the vehicles in town, and the bulk of this money that he has in purchase and services goes to parts for the vehicles. That's probably the biggest thing. Office supplies doesn't constitute a large part of it. He has been working on a lot of the vehicles and bringing them all up to speed. He's asking for about $2,000 more. If you look at the last year's, that would have totaled $21,000, and in this year's budget, it's at $23,000. And that's the difference. It's mostly to get all of those vehicles up to speed. Okay. Do you guys want to talk about each section and then move on?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
I mean, talk about purchase of services and then talk about supplies, then, or the whole budget?
Yeah, talk about purchase of services. That's the big difference there.
I guess my only thing here is he does all of the maintenance for all of the town fleet as well. You know, the shared cars.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Yes, that's true.
I'm good there.
Okay.
Anybody have anything on purchase of services?
I have a question, Jared. The first aid kit, is that something that might fall into consolidation with other departments as well, getting first aid kit service?
Well, with our first aid kit, the only thing that we maintain it's in the bus office for the schools, and the bus drivers, you know, they don't really have a job where they're getting injured much, so they don't use much of the actual supplies. But there is a glucose part of it that is very expensive that they get separately from what we pay. We do share it with them, but they pay for the glucose separately.
So that's in the school budget, or is that in your budget?
No, school pays for the glucose. It's something to do with diabetic children, I guess. They have to have it on the bus, kind of a restriction. And it has an expiration date, so they have to keep changing it out.
Okay. Anybody else on the purchase of services? Not that I can see too many. I can't see everybody, so. Bruce, did you have a question?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well then, moving on, under supplies, you know, again, there's not a lot of change. There was that machinery supply category that got changed to the vehicle/general supplied, similar figure, slight increase there. And then the new category for signs. So other than that, it's pretty much the same.
So what is that vehicle supplies again? So that's new, right?
Yeah, there was a category prior for machinery supplies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I see. Sorry. It's really just
It just changed
a
it.
routine and a little bit of
to reflect.
Anybody have questions on this section?
No. I'm good.
Yes, Madam Chair. Oh, sorry.
Bruce, go ahead.
I'm going to use Jim's point to try to make my point, which is, how do we know even roughly how much of this budget we have any influence over anyway?
Can't quite hear the question.
You know, how much of this budget is really not within our power to change?
The whole budget is within your power to change.
Well, like salaries and...
You can change those if you wanted to. I mean, you can make a recommendation.
Well, there's,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I asked the question in a not a very good way.
Jeff,
But
did
some-
you have a comment?
I just want to, this is a unionized workforce, so the salaries have been
Right.
negotiated through a collective bargaining process.
Right.
We'll take other charges, for instance. That seems to be a little less than $5,000 variance. And what did he say that was for, Karen?
What are you looking at? I'm sorry, Bruce. Other charges?
Yes.
I'm not seeing other charges as a line item. Oh, are you on the? Yeah. Okay. So that's the next section. So there was a substantial increase there, and a lot of that reason is that Butch now has a full crew, so he has to pay the dues and memberships for the full crew, and they also have to do the training. One of them is snow and ice training and the hydraulic licenses. So that has to do with the number of employees he has and the requirements that they have to meet for their training and to pay their dues.
Okay. So that's like a one I would consider that, you know, we wouldn't change in most circumstances.
Yeah, I think those are set, the amount of money they have to pay for those in the training courses, and in order to stay within codes, they have to take those training courses.
And so my ultimate point was that there are going to be very few instances where we're going to have the opportunity to pull down spending. And I think I want to keep that in mind each decision that I make.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily true in the sense that we could vote a different budget, but then again, this is what's being recommended for what they need. We don't really know what the future is holding. There may be a time that we're going to have to make some cuts further on, but I don't think that that's known at this point in time. To start slashing budgets that much.
Well, Kathy, this is Mike. We know that argument, and we spent a lot of time going over detail. We're just going with what the department has to put in the request. Jeff's reviewed it. Here's the number. We shouldn't spend a whole lot of time going through the details and changes. So the overall role is to make sure that what's being requested fits whatever we think the overall financial position of the town is, as we as a finance committee see it. And if we think that, you know, we need to trim back some money from the request, we should figure out, make recommendations in areas where we think it should come out, and get into a process with Jeff and others to figure out what the plan. Versus just, do what they have to say and then rubber stamp what the ask is.
Well, I don't think that I'm saying that it's rubber stamp, but you do have to remember that a good portion of many budgets is that are contractual salaries that have already been probably in a second or third year of a contract. I don't know what year they're into this particular group. I don't think that they were up for renegotiation this year. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
Know what year they're in? Yeah.
And I agree, but we can't go back and negotiate a contract. We have an obligation to fund that, and that's probably an area that we really don't have any flexibility. But we certainly have a bunch of non-union folks who we could say, sorry, we can't afford raises if it gets to that. There's some other items in the budget that we could, so we think, cuts could be viewed if need be. But as we said on the conservation one, I think we're approaching this as we can afford the budget, because we can have a discussion early on and suggest that we can't. We realize that there are areas that we may have to cut if revenue forecasts and don't meet up, and we can figure out how to do that. Not to say that we accept everything in here. I agree that we looking at some things that we don't like some conditions. You can cut those. Recommend that they not be approved.
Further questions? Bruce?
There we go. Just a brief comment that I appreciate the committee allowing that discussion. I know that we're not directly responding to the budget item in front of us, and I appreciate the latitude you gave me on that. Thank you.
Are we talking about the whole budget now or just other charges?
I think at this point you can comment on.
So I'm just curious where we are in relation to funding the new DPW building project. I mean, that's been, the proposed is we've studied it, we've got things. Where are we with it? I guess that's a Jeff or Barbara question.
I think that's, for Jeff or Barbara's right. Jeff, go ahead.
There are 3 building projects that are in various stages. The one that's most immediate is the senior center study. As you know, you funded, or the town meeting funded the study to do the senior center. That's the first building project to get to that point. My recommendation to the Board of Selectmen would be when that project is in construction or completed, we move forward with the DPW facility, and that would include some storage space for records management, which would then allow us to clear out the top floor of the public safety building, which would then lead to a wholesale renovation of the public safety building. So that's kind of the itinerary. The timing would be established by when and if the senior center project is complete or funded or built. But that's kind of the phasing of the work: senior center, DPW, public safety.
Is that still roughly that same 3-year, or like a 9-year time span right now? I think that's what we discussed last year.
Yes, I had originally thought of a 10-year plan, but I'm 1 year in, so I'm down to 9 years.
Okay, thank you.
But it would be my expectation to move on all of these in a timely fashion. I think the DPW facility is woefully inadequate for what we're asking it to do. But I do believe that project needs to be properly scoped. We need to understand what we want that facility to do. We have school buses, we have mechanics, we have storage, we have all kinds of things down there. So having a kind of a good conversation with the right people, Butch and engineers and architects and all these things to figure out what we really want that facility to be able to do is going to be important.
Other questions? Jared, any questions? Jared, still with us?
I have one.
No
Joni, go ahead.
I don't, and I apologize if you said this, Karen. I didn't hear it. But what are the signs? What's the $2,000 for the signs?
That's a new line. Butch, can you address that?
Yeah, traditionally we would take the signs out of the road construction budget, but in discussing with the accountant and Barbara, we kind of felt that it's really not road construction. It's kind of like replacing signs that get hit by cars or new parking signs that police ask for, stuff like that. So we wanted to put it in its own line item.
So what is it for? It's for replacement of what sign?
Any kind of sign, anything that gets hit. If a sign gets hit and we don't get a police report, we're on the hook to replace it. Or if the police, recently we put new no parking signs down at Route 15 near the truck stop, and we had an issue up at the landfill with people coming in with 4x4s, so we put some up there. And any stop signs that get hit, anything that gets hit, we replace ourselves. We have the capability. We just been taking it out of the road construction budget, and they felt there was an inappropriate use for it, so we wanted to create our own line item for it.
Is there money in that budget? I mean, that's a $400,000 budget.
Yes, it is. You could do that.
Is it appropriate to? Would I be appropriate in suggesting that it remain there?
Is that a Barbara question, or?
It's to anyone. Really, you know, it's you know, I know it's what is it might seem like splitting hairs for just $3,000, but I ran earlier, so I won't.
In my opinion, the road construction pot of money is for actual roads, and unless it was signage directly related to road construction, those type of signs could come out of there. So if they were buying signs like caution or different signs that you see in a construction zone, it would be appropriate for those type of things to come out, but not a stop sign or a sign for a street. And so we are trying to put those expenses where they belong, which is in the DPW budget.
When you say signs, then so signs, with the exception of the signs in the landfill, but signs that might need to be replaced or hit. I don't know if a parking sign was destroyed or whatever. Would that not be covered in insurance?
Well, as
it all depends on if
sometimes we don't know. Sorry, Butch.
That's okay. It depends on if we get the police report or not. Some people hit the signs and you never know who hit them. And if they drive away and there's no car to sign to the accident, then it's on us.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Jeff?
And even if, you know, the insurance that we get, you know, if we know the driver, we can bill their insurance company. But if we're going to file it against the town's insurance, we have a deductible that, you know, the sign's not going to be well under the deductible.
Kathy?
Yes, Larry.
Perhaps a way of understanding the situation now is to reverse it. What if, for years and years, there had been a sign line, such, 1,000, 2,000, whatever the amount of money is, the sign line. And this year, which comes in, and there's no sign line. It's put into road construction. We say, would we not? What? There are no more signs? Well, of course there are. So a way of understanding the way it is proposed is to simply reverse it and then see, no. Put it into a separate sign way. It's a better way to track things.
I think the need has always been there. It's just that the money has been taken from a category that it hasn't been appropriate. It's been coming from the construction, and now they're trying to put it where it belongs.
It's not new money. It's
Right.
moved money.
Well, it's coming out. So the road comes out of the warrant, which is different money. It's different money. So I guess I don't see why it would stay there unless.
How is that different money? Is that
It's raised and appropriate. It's out of the tax rate.
it's still on the tax rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
The road construction.
Yeah. It says
Yeah,
raised and
everybody's equally green.
Yeah, so it's still really coming out of the tax rate.
So, is
It's
Butcher
about
to
the-
talk about that too?
Was that?
Or-
Could I? Sorry.
Barbara?
Go ahead.
So last year, fiscal 20, The amount for road construction, repairs, and maintenance was $458,000. The amount that we are looking to fund this year, if you go to page E3 of your budget, your spiral book, is $434,648. So that budget was actually reduced more than the amount of those fines.
I was just,
So it actually, it is the same pot of money because both that article and the budget are raised and appropriate.
right. I had a question if we're bringing that up. It's just, how did we do with road construction last year? We haven't seen a road plan in a few years, in the ratings. And Butch, I guess that was for you.
Yeah, I haven't updated one in my office for 2018, and CMRPC just contacted me, and they want to update it for last year's paving too. But we're in pretty good shape. But after this year, I have a kind of aggressive program, and if I can get it all in, we'll have taken care of every road that had a poor or very poor rating, which is good.
That is good.
Question, as long as we're on the topic of road, is the lines evaluated differently than just the condition of the pavement? Could that be
the condition? There's a lot to it. They drive the roads. It depends on, like, some roads are really bad in sections, but the whole road rating may not be that bad because not 80% of the roads are in good shape. A couple of bad sections that maybe end up being a satisfactory road, whereas something with a lot of cracks and crack sealing could be a good road as long as it rides well. And then I think they take into effect the amount of traffic on the road too. Like Brookfield Road would be a little more likely to be done before some cul-de-sac somewhere.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Mike. You look at this, and this is a pretty big department budget, 1.3 million. I would say for DPW is, he's got a backlog of work and things that need to get fixed that well exceed this budget that's coming in, and he's just trying to manage whatever pot of money we can. So, if we don't have a lot of money and want to chop this thing in half, he'll have to work and reprioritize what he has. But I think he doesn't have any significant changes in here, and I think we finally got this department up to full staff, and which is doing a good job just trying to prioritize the work and do what he can get done within the budget that he has, and come back next year and try to
Okay, does anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Just briefly, just to complete it, on page C9, the other two sections that are related to this, we have the town road maintenance for the private roads. That's been consistent at the $6,000. When I talked to Butch about it, he said, I can use all of that. If you give me less, then I'll just have less work to do. And I think we just heard him say he's working diligently to get all of the roads where they need to be. And then the snow and ice removal, again, there's not really a lot of change there. And also, Butch has said he's already underfunded on that one, but he'll work with what we give him.
Well, for being underfunded, his crew did an absolutely fabulous jobs on the roads this past winter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, he did, even though there was very little snow. So who knows what might have happened if we had successive snow.
The snow's going to come on May 8th. That's when it's coming.
Yes, I heard that. We can't wait.
Oh, brother.
So any other questions? Otherwise, we are ready for a motion. We'll do it by each, the DPW, town roads, and then snow and ice, one by one. Karen, you want to start?
So I make a motion that we recommend to the town that they approve the Department of Public Works budget in the amount of $1,106,531.
Kevin Smith, seconds.
All right, roll call vote. Larry,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Joni. Joni?
Sorry, I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Jim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Yes. Kathy, yes. So that is 9-0. Okay, next one, town road maintenance.
That we recommend to the town to approve the town road maintenance budget in the amount of $6,000.
Kevin Smith, seconds.
Roll call, sorry. Jared,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Kathy, yes. That is a vote of 9-0. And one more for snow and ice.
I make a motion that we recommend to the town to approve the snow and ice removal budget in the amount of $120,000.
Kevin Smith, seconds.
Okay, roll call vote. Karen,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and Kathy, yes. And that is also a vote of 9-0. Okay. Butch, I think we have a couple of capital items if we want to delve into those, if people want explanations under the capital plan, which is your green
Okay.
there. So we did have a few here, I noticed. I should know that because I'm on that committee. First one is the DPW F-350 dump truck at $66,000. Comment
Yeah,
on
we
that?
have a,
think
yeah,
that's
it's a truck number 4. It's a truck number 4. It's a 2007 one-ton. It's got a lot of rust underneath and to the point where the frame is cracked in all 4 corners. And our welder was uncomfortable with trying to make repairs, and we tried to get an outside firm, and they wouldn't touch it. So it's parked right now. It's one of those things where I guess you're not supposed to weld frames extensively. So we'd have to replace the whole frame, and I'm not sure if that's worth it. The truck is pretty bad.
I just one question related to it, Kathy. I mean, it only quote $66,000. Is that new or used?
Brand new.
It's what, I'm sorry?
That's brand new.
Okay. I mean, new F-150s cost that much.
Yeah, well, in the state contract, we get really good brakes.
Okay.
We're not getting leather in it, you know.
No.
No serious radio, no leather, you know.
It won't be a platinum.
No, it's a dump truck.
Bare bones.
It's a one-ton though.
Yes.
Any other discussion about that one? There's a few trucks this year, actually, I see. Any other comments or questions on this one? Okay, we'll move on to the DPW F-150 pickup truck for $35,000. Butch, you want to explain that one?
Yeah, this is truck number 27 is a 1997 F-350 that's in probably worse shape than the other one, although it is still drivable. I'd like to replace that one. Extensive rust, too. And what I wanted to do is, I drive a what do you call it, a 3/4 ton with a plow with a 6.2 liter engine in it that I don't really need 90% of the time. I'd rather give that back to the crew and get myself a smaller F-150 with possibly a 6-cylinder engine. I thought that'd be more like what I would use, because I hardly ever plow. I mean, I will if I have to, but the most crew does most of it because it is a union job.
Any questions on that?
No.
Just a general question, Kathy. This is Jim. Are these both vehicles four-wheel drive? Butch?
Yes.
Okay, the next one is DPW gas pump replacement at $14,000. That's the pump down at the DPW, right, Butch?
Yeah, those are the two gas pumps we have. It's a diesel pump and a gas pump. They're very, very old. We had a lot of trouble with them last year. They were shut down. We couldn't access them. We have to call in for service. And I can tell you how old they are. You can't even read any of the writing on them. They've been there so long, and I just thought it was time before we get to a point where they fail on us and we can't get gas.
So, I have a question here. Sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sure.
Is the $14,000 just for the pure replacement of the pumps and the whole pump system and tanks, or does that also include all the environmental crap you're going to have to go through to prove that you didn't contaminate the soil around the tanks and all that?
I think the tanks are fine. It's just the pumps themselves and the canisters. And, if you pull up to a gas station, you have that canister that sits there with a hose, and then the related pumps inside the
dispensers and sub pumps.
Yeah, dispenser's a good word, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there won't be any need for any type of people coming in from, the State Department of Environmental Protection or our Board of Health or anything like that to review what's going on?
I don't believe so, but I'll definitely check into that, but I don't believe so.
You do know my son works for the EPA, Kevin, don't you?
No, I didn't. But I'm just thinking, this is something that if they got involved and had us doing some type of remediation would add to that $14,000. So.
Yeah, this is Mike. I think that doesn't apply when he's just replacing the above ground elements here, but certainly when it gets to the point where he needs to go through that 20-year cycle of replacing the tank itself, then you need to go in and make sure you haven't had any leaks or discharge, so forth with that.
Any other questions on the gas pump?
Yes, a couple quick ones, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
How did you get the price?
For the gas pumps?
Yes.
Yeah, Bierman Services takes care of our pumps now, and I went through them for the quote. So if I get the money, I'll definitely put it out to bid or at least solicit a couple more quotes.
Thank you.
Jeff?
This pump replacement project also includes a new tracking system, because each department, has to put in a code for when they buy gas for each car, so we can track how much gas we're using, so we can budget for it and order it. So this includes a new kind of tracking system as well, doesn't it, Bruce? Butch, I'm sorry.
I don't know if it has a new tracking system. I think we're piggybacking on the old tracking system. That might be something I'd have to look into separately.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought we were going that way, but that's fine, either way.
Yeah.
Wait, the next one is the stainless steel slide-in sander body for $14,000. I believe that's the new. What's that?
A quick question. I think you said this before, but how much is in the free cash?
Ooh. Is it around $4 million now, Barbara, after the special town meeting?
Yeah, I'll give you the exact figure in a minute.
I think she already did.
The amount after the special town meeting is $4,478,241.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
are you all set, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay, so back into the stainless steel slide-in standard body for the new F-550 truck.
Yeah, so we just got the truck in actually, and for some reason they didn't sand a body with it, which I was kind of surprised because these trucks we use on the dirt roads. We have 11 miles of dirt roads, and some of the bigger trucks can't fit on those roads, so we use these smaller trucks for those roads. And this is a sander body for that truck, or a spreader body they call it.
Oh, okay. Questions on that or comments?
Just a comment. This is Jim. That's a good price for a stainless steel job.
And it'll last a long time.
Yeah, lasts forever.
Any other questions? I think you have one more, which the power washer with undercarriage attachment for $6,000.
Yeah, well, that goes in the two trucks we're getting rid of were rusted out horribly, and because we have no way to wash the undercarriage, and if we ever do get a new DPW, usually it'll include a wash bay, which will have sprayers underneath. You can drive over to clear up all the rust underneath. We don't have any capability of doing that, and this pressure washer, which we need to replace anyway, because the one we have is really old, but it comes with an attachment on wheels with a spiraling spray that goes up under the truck, and you just pass it underneath the truck, and we can use it for the small trucks, the big trucks, and even the buses. Clear all the salt out from under the vehicles after every storm.
Oh, okay. Any questions on that?
I have a question. Butch, is this gas powered or electric?
This would be probably diesel, electric and diesel.
Diesel.
It's basically a pressure washer or a steam cleaner.
But
I
it's
think it
diesel
has diesel
powered, not
for
electric.
the motor, and it's got electric for the pump.
For the pump. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on this or any other of the DPW capital? Otherwise, I think we can let Butch go. Thank you, Butch, for staying on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Butch.
And now on to, I believe we have the fire department and the public safety building too. So, Mike, I believe you are both of those.
Yes. So I'm going to work off of the fire department's detailed budget on page D24. Overall, there's about a $200,000 increase. The majority of which is up in, I'll start at the top of the salary line item. So I think the two main drivers in there outside of regular, raises that go on is that the SAFER grant is still rolling off. So we have 35% of the salaries for those four positions paid for roughly the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And then after that, we're paying 100% of that. So we're seeing the final and roll off of the SAFER grant, and we're paying the full cost of the new employees that we brought on to meet the staffing plan that the town has adopted for this department. And then also the administrative assistance position is having the hours increase from 25 to 35 hours a week to provide support to all the other administrative tasks that go on there, and we have a little bit of time, another time to deal with the ongoing and volume of administrative asks and requests that are coming into that department. Getting into the purchase of services, dozens of line items here. I would say the top 80-90% of that is regular routine stuff, $2 changes here and there. I would classify those as non-material, but if there's one that you get to questions that jumps out of it, and individual address those. I would I would say most of those are non-material changes. When you get to things towards the bottom, is where you start to see a bunch of new items that add some dollars. So overall, this budget here is up about $30,000. And those new items, there's one item in here, $6,500 tech training. That is a one-time training. Is EMTs, police tactical training. EMT be there at times, standing by ready to support whatever that tactical situation is. It would be nice to have the EMTs trained in those situations since they may be part of that. So that was one new item that got added in there. And then there's this flexible implementation, which adds a couple of line items at about $15,000. And that's really a system that the chief would use to update and rewrite all of the department policies that will help them adopt best practices, make sure that all departments make sure that his policies and practices that are established for the department are consistent with state codes and requirements. It's also a system that allows him, instead of just rolling out the new procedure and asking his staff to shake their head or otherwise say, yes, they've read it, they understand it, it's a formal process to make sure that they've received it, that they acknowledge that they've gotten it, and to add some little quizzes along the way to make sure that not only are they just checking a box, but they really have read it and understand the basics that are in there. So it's a system to give them better control and ensuring that his staff truly understands the policies and procedures that are needed in that department. The supply budget is basically level funded. Again, some small changes here and there, but nothing of material. Same thing with the other charges section. So the total budget in the end is $1,772,576. What I'll do is pause and let the chief see if he wants to add anything to that summary.
Mike, thank you for that presentation. Very, very well presented. As Mike said, the salaries budget, the majority of the increase there is related to the SAFER grant coming to an end. We will have a 35% participation from July 1st until it's actually January 23rd of 2021. And then on January 24th, 2021, the town is responsible for 100% of those four salaries. Aside from that, there are the required contractual increases, and then I have asked for an additional 10 hours per week for the administrative assistant. And it's interesting to note that I found back a few years ago, looking through some of the budgets prior to my arrival, I guess there was some consideration to try and increase the number of hours for that position then. I'm not sure what the process was or where that went, but it seems that the number of responsibilities placed on that position continue to increase to now include scheduling of personnel, recording of minutes of not only staff meetings, but the recording of minutes of other meetings that are held in my office, as well as transcribing the minutes of those meetings. The admin is really the main point of contact for the public in issuing burning permits and meeting the public when they come in. and unfortunately, those requirements don't end at 1 o'clock when she leaves. So the budget impact there is about $9,700 annually. So all of that put together is the increase that you see in the salaries request. Purchase of services, as Mike said, the probably top 50% are all of the annual licensing and inspections and maintenance requirements that we have to go through, as well as that we have on not only the ambulances but the fire apparatus. One item of note, I have a line there for ambulance sanitizing, $1,260. That line can realistically come out of the budget now that we've gone ahead and ordered the Aeroclave unit that you were gracious enough to allow me to have the reserve fund transfer a few weeks back. So not a huge give back, but something for sure. $1,260. As Mike said, the two big things that stand out are the TECC training and the Lexipol. The TECC training is really goes hand in hand with the ALICE drills that we conduct, and it's really something that's it's a result of the whole active shooter situation. This is a program where my medics would be trained to integrate with the tactical law enforcement teams that make entry into a building, so that in the event that one of those individuals gets injured, shot, or becomes otherwise incapacitated, my people are trained to care for them in a combat situation, not only to stabilize them, but to extract them from that situation. This was something I had a conversation with Chief Ford about a while ago, and he was very supportive of it. I believe that Lieutenant Desert is still very supportive of it. It would be a one-time cost to bring in an outside vendor to do the training for 20 to 25 paramedics. And I realize it's a little bit difficult to make the argument today with school not being in session, but I actually had a conversation with Jeff this afternoon, and he brings up a good point. This is forever training. Once we have this training, it's something that it won't go away. And obviously, when the schools open up again, we hope to never have this need, but the training would still be valuable. As far as the Lexipol two line items, this was something that when I first started here was one of my 3 to 5 year plans was to redo the policies and procedure manual for the fire department. It's woefully inadequate. There's a mix of policies that are actually no longer valid, along with procedures that change on a almost I'll say a frequent basis because of the current situation and legalities. Lexipol would come in and provide us, they would start from the ground and build our policies from the ground up according to best practices and according to Massachusetts case law. The benefit of this is multifaceted, but it will help to reduce our risk, lower litigation costs, and ultimately, in my opinion, improve the safety of our personnel. So this is something I feel very passionate about, this program, this company. I've done my research on this. They are the premier company in this country that does this kind of work. They have a group of professionals and attorneys in the state of Massachusetts that follow Massachusetts case law related to the fire service and fire department policies and procedures so that they would continually update me and our people on what the most recent case law is. I think this is in the best interest of the town and the department to move forward with this particular program. The rest, as Mike said, is pretty much level funded. I try to keep things as needs as opposed to wants, and I feel pretty comfortable that those numbers are reflective of that.
Questions? Larry?
No, I think the chief did a superb job laying things out, and Mike likewise.
Jared?
No question.
Joni?
I do not have any questions.
Shocking. Jim?
I have no questions.
Kevin, I saw your hand up anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to ruin the streak. So I have a question just on the training. You said, it'd be a one-time and never have to be done. Is that because someone in your force is going to become a train-the-trainer type of thing, and then that just keeps perpetuating itself within your department so you don't have to bring in an outside training?
That's one possibility. The other possibility is with having so many of our people trained, we could really designate the individuals that become the entry people for this program. Similar to a SWAT team, not everybody in the police department is part of the SWAT team. So, having the whole group trained initially would give me longevity in the number of people that I would have moving forward to be part of the program. But I like your idea about having a train-the-trainer, and if I can fit that into that program, I certainly would.
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, Bruce?
I got my answers, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mike.
Karen?
No question.
Hey, whoa, that was quick. Mike, are you ready to make a motion?
I am. Make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the fire department budget in the amount of $1,771,316. That's the amount in the book less than $1,260.
I was just going to ask, did you take out the $1,260?
I did.
So could you repeat that again? So I can
$1,771,316.
Kevin Smith, seconds.
Second. Okay. Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy, yes. That is 9-0. Thank you, Chief. And then I think we have the also the public safety complex, which is on page C6 and
It's D20 for the
D20.
Yep. So again, to tee this up, the overall budget is down about $7,000. In the purchase of services line items, again, the top 80% of this is the typical recurring line items. Up a little bit, down a little bit, but nothing material line. And there are a couple items at the bottom of that that have been removed that account for the roughly $7,000 reduction there. And those have to do with trash removal that, again, consolidated into the account. And we had the cleaning that was taking place, a one-time cleaning, that's those account for the majority of that. And then in supplies, that's a level funded budget. The various cleaning and other supplies associated with the facility itself.
Keith, did you have anything to add to that?
I would love to take credit for having the reduction in the budget, but that's really due to Barbara's work and Robin, the facility coordinator's work, and taking on some of those expenses into central purchasing. So just want to give them credit where credit is due.
Okay, questions? Kevin?
I'm good.
Okay, Joni?
I'm good.
There's your two big hitters out of the way.
I know, yeah. Get to my order here. Jared?
No question.
Larry?
All set.
Jim?
No questions.
Bruce? You all set? I think you're muted. I'm going to take that as a no.
I'm sorry. I'm all set, yeah.
Your lips there. Karen?
All set.
Okay, Mike, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend that town meeting approve the safety complex budget in the amount of $86,395.
Kevin Smith seconds.
Okay, roll call vote. Larry?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And Kathy, yes. So that's another 9-0 vote. Right here.
I guess if we move on to capital budget, I forget how we funded it last year, but there were two projects that got funded that building last year. One had to do with the replacement of the overhead doors. I'm talking to the chief that is something that's in the works. They're going out to bid, or we're ready to go out to bid to have get the doors replaced. And then there was some money set aside to put an epoxy or level out the floor, resurface the floors, and the equipment is, and working with others, felt that the door replacement needed to take place before the floors and doors aligned properly when both projects were executed. So those are still in the works at this stage.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I actually had a conversation with Robin this afternoon. Those projects are both ready to go out to bid. There was a concern about the need to have site visits by the potential vendors, but we think we've come up with a workable solution to allow that to happen so that the vendors have the opportunity to see the job prior to deciding whether or not to submit a bid. So those should start moving forward very quickly now. At least I hope to, anyways.
Okay, and in the capital budget, there's also actually quite a number of requests for the, not so much the fire department itself, but for the public safety complex. We just want to run through those. I don't know if you got to that, Mike. The first is a copier at the public safety complex for $8,000. So it's a over 10-year-old.
10-year-old copiers that run out, they're hard to maintain, easier just to replace and move forward. So that's what that one's covering.
And
the next one after that is replacement of the security cameras. So there are security cameras throughout the building, but the current ones are failing. They take a look at what it's going to cost to replace, the existing interior and exterior cameras that are failing. It's a lot more cost effective to go ahead and just replace all those cameras. state. So that's what that funding request is covering.
And
Is that,
sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just wondering, is that like a replacement of a wired system? It's going to be hardwired throughout the whole building? This isn't a wireless type of system, right?
We did consult with Jeremy on this. He was very, very involved in the conversation about how to go about this. I don't know the answer to that question, Kevin, but what I can tell you is it was Jeremy's opinion that the technology has come so far since these current cameras were installed. This system is going to be the new technology, whatever that terminology means.
Okay. I'm just curious because sometimes, obviously the hardwired cameras give you, they'll never lose their connection, internet connection. They give you better pictures. If it was wireless, I'd have more concerns, especially since a lot of that building is cinder block, and so cement's always causes a problem depending on what frequency you're using.
Yeah, and I'm almost positive. Unfortunately, I apologize, but Robin kind of took the bull by the horns on this one. I'm sure that Jeremy had some input, and whatever generated that figure, he had a part of. So I'm pretty sure he feels comfortable with it.
Okay. I have to imagine too. We don't have the details here, but it's not just cameras. It includes the DVRs and backup to the DVRs and all that type of stuff. So all those images stored someplace. And there's probably
that is my understanding. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. It's a full system.
Anybody else on the security cameras?
Okay, so moving on a couple pages later, there is the safety complex exterior storage containers for $21,000.
Well, there's chairs, right?
Wait a minute, the chairs on the very page.
Yeah, I marked those off, but I thought we talked about the chief, but yes, there are some chairs and some desks when the chief was in, we talked about for dispatch area and other staff members that are being changed out for more ergonomic.
Now that the chairs you see there, the executive chairs, are for the 3 dispatch positions. As I'm sure you all know, the dispatchers work 8-hour shifts, and sometimes they're held over to work 16-hour shifts. The chairs that are in there are in pretty bad shape, and there have been some grumblings about back concerns and etc. And this was a request made by the lead dispatcher to replace the chairs that are in there with newer ones.
And how many chairs are you getting for $3,300?
3.
3, I think he said.
So 3 like Herman Miller Aeron?
I'm sorry?
Kevin?
I was going to say, $1,100 a chair is pretty expensive. So you going like with Herman Miller Aeron, something that can last 20, 30 years?
I don't recall the name. I'll get that to you. I don't have it in front of me, but I will get that to you.
Okay. Because I'll go from personal example. I have a Herman Miller chair I've had for 12 years now. The thing is wonderful. It has never had an issue whatsoever, and that's about what the going rate for it is.
Okay. I'm writing this down. Herman Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Kathy?
Yes.
Can I go back? Did we skip over the Xerox machine?
No, we did it.
The copier? Sorry.
Yeah, we did.
We started there, but go ahead.
Did I miss that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we started with that one. It's over 10 years old, and
Okay, but $8,000 for a copy machine is like close to a Mercedes of machines. Do you really need a? get a nice Xerox machine for, you know, $1,200, $1,300, even $1,500, even $2,000.
I'm going to defer to Barbara on that one. I think she probably has more information on that than I do.
The machine that was quoted is comparable to the machine that's currently there.
What's there? It must be Mercedes, because honestly, you know, I'm looking at several machines and you know, $1,200 you can get a super nice, sturdy, well, high volume machine. I mean,
Well,
you know,
we got a quote for replacement of the copy machine at the senior center. That one was about, I think, $4,200 or $4,400, and there would be less volume of copies there than at the public safety complex. So most, you know, the machines that we've bought in the recent past have not been in the under $2,000 range.
Is that because they also serve as network printers? Is that what this extra cost?
They do. We do use them for scanning. We use them for printing. Yes, they are networked.
That would account for some of the cost, Joni. I'm with you. A base copier would be not so bad, but if it's got all the networking features, that adds a bit.
Yeah, but Kevin, okay, I've been in some of your offices, and you guys have like state-of-the-art freaking copy machines that are network capable of scanning, and they are not $5,000 machines. I know they're not, and they're awesome. They're touch tone, you know. They look like but they don't cost that, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just Googled it real quick, and $8,000. That's like one hell of a machine.
Yeah, and if I may.
Go ahead. I was going to say,
Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff, go ahead.
we can look at the pricing on that. I certainly, you know, we'll go with what we need only, but Barbara, how long have we had the one we have?
10 years.
2010. It was purchased. It was installed July of 2010. It's currently in poor condition.
All right, so it's a 10-year-old
and they're
machine.
unable to get one.
It's a 10-year-old machine. It works for the police department, the fire department, the dispatchers use it, emergency management uses it. You know, it's going to have a lot of people using this thing. So we're going to buy one that's rugged and going to last. I mean, I'd rather buy one for $8,000 that lasts 10 years than a $5,000 one that's going to last us 3. So we'll evaluate which one's going to be in the best shape for us. If it's not $8,000, then it's not $8,000, but this is the price we got to replace the machine we have with the features and the reliability we've enjoyed.
So Jeff, just a quick add-on question there then. Since it's being used by, as you said, 3 separate departments, do we have a monitoring thing on it that tracks the cost per department for their copying use?
I know, Barbara.
Just to...
No, we don't track by department.
Does this include maintenance too?
I don't have the specifics in front of me at this point.
No, this
So most of them do come with maintenance.
I mean, some of the deals on the copiers, some of them provide you toner for like 3 years, maintenance for 3 years. I mean, we didn't actually. This is the estimated cost that was provided based on a comparable machine, but we haven't spec'd out an actual machine or what's going to be, you know, what things are going to come with it. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We would do that once the funding was in place.
And we can.
What brand is it? Because, you know, I just have a hard time with $8,000 for a copier machine that you can absolutely get 10 years out of something for a $4 or $5K. You know, again, in the offices that I've worked in with Kevin, huge volume go through those, huge. And they're not just copiers. They're fax, they're scanners, they're
Printers.
You can print them from your machines, and they're on the network. They're wireless. They've got all the bells and whistles. They've got security. You know, they count stuff. They can do all that stuff for you. And I know for a fact that they don't cost more than $200. And they're zero.
So in an effort to move this along, if you want to pick a number, we'll find a machine that fits that number.
What is the threshold for a capital cost? I mean, I don't want to be unreasonable, but I think $8,000 is a lot of money for a copy machine. I mean, I would say, you know, $4,500 is the threshold for a capital cost.
5,000.
What is it?
It's usually 5,000.
So 5,000, I guess.
Yeah.
So Kathy, this is Mike. Well, I would represent 5,000 rather than 8,000 for a copier. I don't want to come up with a number arbitrarily and force and kind of manage the details of what's going on here. So I'm okay with, we've expressed a concern about the price, do the due diligence, with the right machine at the lowest cost we can get. But I don't want to arbitrarily set a budget. Maybe we're not going to vote on this tonight. Maybe they can do their homework back to us when we get to voting on it.
Yeah, I mean, we aren't voting on the capital yet, so I think that would be the appropriate time. Jeff?
Yeah, and I don't know if we're going to have the chance to spec one out, and, you know, there's state bid prices we can get, but like I said, let's pick a number tonight, and if we spec one next year that costs more, I'll come back for a, you know, reserve fund transfer. Just let's move this along.
I'm with, 5K, I think, you know, if we cut it by $3,000, you know, and guys don't have the money. I'm splitting hairs. I mean, I guess I am splitting hairs, but I know that I'm looking at some of these machines, and you can get really nice machines.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't know that, you know, I don't want to spend an evening on $3,000. We can go with the 5, and if we need more, we'll ask for more at the reserve fund transfer. That's all.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. And again, I'm not picking on anybody. It just struck me as a really high number, and if it's something that we can cut, you know, I'm all for it.
I understand.
All right, why don't we move on? What's that, Kevin?
That's okay. We'll move on to storage.
Yes, storage.
So there's.
Thought we missed one.
So there could be three storage units in the area at the safety complex there. There's a fair amount of equipment that is in the building taking space that could go in there. There's some equipment that's stored outside that could be better preserved or inside a container out of the element. So what this is trying to do is provide some storage space for both police and fire equipment outside the building.
So what are they made of? What are the, you know, heavy snow type thing? Are they just metal? Are they plastic? Are they pods? What are they?
So these are the metal shipping containers that you see on cargo ships, for example.
Connex boxes.
They call them Connex. Yeah, Connex boxes. Yeah. The bigger picture benefit to this is that you know, when we get to remodel this building and hopefully acquire more space, these boxes can be repurposed either to a different location for storage purposes or turned into a usable training prop for the fire and police departments.
Can you just give us an example of some of the equipment that might be stored in it? What's the ones that are exposed to the elements that need to be protected?
Yeah, so both the police and fire departments have boats that have to sit out all winter long. We both have UTVs that need to be stored. There are, you know, we have a snow plow that, you know, my personal feelings should not be sitting out in the weather all summer long and just getting rained on and rusted and you know, what have you. in addition to any other sundry stuff that we have that we keep, generators and training props and those kind of items. So, for example, Kevin, we have a John Deere Gator. We generally use that during brush fire season and during special events. During the winter time, it just takes up space. It takes up space inside where I really need the space to put my snowplow so that when the ambulance has to get out, if DPW is not available, I can run the snowplow up the hill to get us out. Same thing with the boats. And the boats in the wintertime, we run the expense of winterizing these boats because we don't have the room to keep them inside all winter. They can be put into the storage container with a lot less cost to prepare them for that than what we have now. On top of that, we have trailers and other equipment that sits out year round and just gets weather beaten unnecessarily. It's equipment that the town has bought that, be it good, bad, or indifferent, sits more than it gets used. It's needed equipment, but it's being exposed to weather that it really doesn't need to be exposed to.
So the other quick thing on this one is, and I'll go back to my planning days, if this were a business in town, there would be some site plan review process or something. They want to make sure that it's consistent with the zoning bylaws that you have these storage units on your property there. I don't want us to think we're in the town and we can just do whatever we feel is worthwhile here. So I just would ask that you check with Gene over in planning just to make sure that this is consistent how we treat other businesses.
I think it actually came up at the capital planning committee, as I remember, because Gene was there.
Yeah, I think she mentioned we would have to get a special permit.
Yeah, that has been brought up. So I think we're cognizant of what has to be done. Jeff?
If we need to, we can probably find room for them at DPW too.
That's true. These things are movable. And the other issue is public safety complex is a very visible spot. So you don't want it to be an eyesore. And if it's stuff you don't need day to day and you got a spot down by the barn without taking up too much, you could move it and store it somewhere else in town so it's not sticking out like a sore thumb.
Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions on those storage containers?
So moving on, another item here is a station alerting system. So right now, we have some folks who are walking overnight there, or maybe at different parts of the building doing different things throughout their shift. There really is no overall central way of alerting them to calls that are coming in. So Chief is proposing that we put in an alerting system that is both visible and audible when calls come in, so that
Comments, questions?
Joni has.
Who does?
Joni.
Me.
Oh, Joni, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just curious on this, going through the betterment. This not be that would be funded out of betterment?
No, this is capital.
But so I guess I'm wondering why this would be capital, yet we have some firefighting gear for $13,000-14,000. Like, what's the difference there?
Kathy, do you want me to try to speak on that?
Sure.
All right. So the 13,000, Joni, is money that we're putting aside each year for the replacement of the turnout gear that we wear. In 2013, we received a grant and everybody got a new set of turnout gear. The gear is good for approximately 10 years. Currently, a set of gear is about $4,000. So in 2023, I need to replace 25 sets of gear. And rather than try to appropriate all that money in 1 year, a couple of years ago it was agreed that we'd start putting some of this money aside so that in 2023 we wouldn't have to try and raise it all at one time. So that's why that 13.5 is, you'll see that recurring each year. This is something,
Yeah.
so this 12,750 is something that's going to be affixed to the structure. So when this building was built, we didn't have overnight firefighters. And currently, the way they're alerted at night is by a portable radio. And what we're finding is they're becoming less and less reliable. Those batteries will, unfortunately, through human error or otherwise, go dead during the middle of the night. Now a call comes in and those firefighters can't get alerted. And please excuse my rashness, someone's in the bathroom or the shower, there's no way for those people to get alerted when a call comes in. So this project would, in a sense, put speakers and lighting, or the ability to activate speakers and lighting in the building, in certain areas of the building, so that when a call came in, it's an automatic notification system, as opposed to having a firefighter carry a battery-operated portable radio or have some other type of individualized notification system with them. So I think from the question of what's capital and what's betterment, this is something that's going to be affixed to the building and go on for several years, as opposed to this annual contribution to an apparatus stabilization fund or an ambulance stabilization fund, as an analogy.
Okay, so, yeah, I get that. So it's affixed to the building, but we've purchased, radios and other things for the police in the past through Betterment. In fact, phone, for example. There are certain equipment that we have purchased through Betterment that, I'm seeing here. I don't know. I guess I would think that this could be something purchased from Betterment. And I was just wondering what the criteria is. If it's affixed to the building, if that's the criteria, I get it. I'm not disputing the cost or anything or the need to have it. That's why I'm thinking Betterment is for the public safety, which this is definitely public safety, right?
Well, it would fall under, one of the things is construction, expansion, or renovation of a facility, and this would be renovation. That's one of the reasons why it would be in capital. Or facility projects. There's another reason.
Okay. Is that in there, or did I not?
Yeah, it's right in front of that section. In the capital plan section, it gives you the reasons.
All right, well, that makes sense. I guess I was wondering why, something like this couldn't have come from Betterment. Thank you, Kevin.
No problem. I have a question, just an additional one. Can this serve another purpose at all besides just kind of flashing to tell people they have an ambulance call or something like that? Can it be used, a prisoner escaped from the holding area or something like that? Is there any other purpose other than the one just letting on-call people know that they need to head to the truck?
Well, I think the answer is yes to that. I think it's going to serve as a PA system. So I guess if dispatch needs to get in touch with the firefighters in the firehouse, as opposed to picking up the phone call, there's a way for them to speak across those speakers to the fire department. It's not, the quote you see here is not a building-wide project. It's really just the fire side that's going to be affected by it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, well, that wasn't clear that it's just the fire side that would be here. Because I was going to say, aren't there really two separate dispatches? There's a fire dispatch and the police emergency management dispatch, emergency services.
Well, no, that's not 100% correct. There may be more than one person in dispatch, but each of them will have multiple functions. It's really whoever picks up the phone, 911, what's your emergency? To the, this particular call, it's a fire call, and the next particular call that gets picked up, it could be a shoplift. But they're going to notify the appropriate agency, regardless of whether it's one person in there or two people or three people in there. I think the important part of this project is that when a fire call comes in and the dispatcher goes to alert the fire department, they're going to push a button and it's going to activate the lights in the firehouse on the fire side, and it's going to open up the speakers on the fire side so that when the dispatcher speaks into the microphone, the firefighters get to hear what that dispatch is.
It'll be like that old TV show Emergency.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is.
Kevin, in the example you gave about a prisoner on the loose, you keep in mind that at least on the police side, I don't know about fire, there are cameras covering literally every cubic inch.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was just, it seems like a lot. I'm just curious if there's, other purposes we could multitask it for.
Well, it's an alert system, so there's a need to, but only on the fire side, as Chief said. So if we need to send an alert of some type, we have the capability to do that with this system.
Well, my first thought was, why can't we just reverse 911, the fire people who are on call, and but that would require them that they would have to carry their personal cell phones. I'm sure they don't all do that,
Certainly not while they're sleeping.
Right, it might not come up either, just a cell phone call.
Yeah, just remember, these firefighters work 24 on. So this is a 24-hour shift. So they could be doing training, they could be doing other things like the chief said, shower or maintenance in the building somewhere where their radios are off, or they're, like you said, the battery dies and this gets alerted and they can respond.
Yep.
Any other questions on that one? Oh, Bruce?
You're on mute.
Bruce, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Is it an independent operating system, so that it's possible that it could be installed at another location in the unlikely event that you had to leave the public safety complex?
I don't believe so. I think basically what this is a lot of wire attached to speakers and attached to lights that somehow connect to a computer that goes back to dispatch. So possibly some of the components can be moved, but I think there's a good part of it that won't be able to be.
Thank you.
And then the last one, actually the fire department, which I momentarily had forgotten, was the rather large purchase of a fire pumper for $750,000, of which part of it would come from stabilization account, the fire apparatus stabilization account, and the remainder would come from free cash. This is a rather old fire pumper.
So in light of small dollar amounts get a lot of discussion, and large ones get very little on both very little here. But so this is a planned replacement. We've been setting aside some money. This year was a planned replacement for the vehicle here, and Chief was looking to replace the 1998 engine 2, which currently has a cracked frame and is inoperable, and he's borrowing a truck from the Spencer department with the hopes that he can get this thing funded and replaced for the part of next year. And I have asked the chief in my discussions with him, because sometimes these budgets are 6 months in the making by the time we get to town meeting, and by the time the fiscal year's there, money's ready, and then, we're getting towards the end of the year and still trying to spend the money that's getting stale. But since this is, he's got it down one truck, I was asking the chief if he could anticipate that he would get the funding in town meeting and have it on July 1, so at least the preparation of the specs and starting of the bid process, whatever you can do to accelerate to hit the ground running on July 1, rather than start the process then and accelerate the time it's going to take to get this new vehicle.
Yes, that's correct. I would say probably late September, beginning of October, I established a committee, myself and 4 firefighters, and we began the process of brainstorming and meeting with vendors and looking at potential vendors actually seeing their truck being brought to the firehouse, and we're very close. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, and tomorrow could be the last meeting we need to have. We're very close to having a full set of specs ready to go in the event that this appropriation is approved. I have spoken with a couple of vendors. Some of them have expressed to me that we could have a new vehicle as early as the fall of 2021. Others have said that it could take up to 180 days from the day we place the order. So, along with doing our due diligence and being fiscally responsible, that variable is going to weigh probably more heavily on this particular process than would normally be the case, because of the fact that we are down one pumper and we are borrowing a pumper from the town of Spencer.
Any questions, comments?
One question. Just so if this is one planned purchase, when is the next planned piece of equipment to be purchased? And what is it?
Fiscal 23 will replace the sister truck to this, but it's 1 year older. It's actually a 97. It serves as a rescue and not a pumper, so it doesn't get as much, which is why it's 2 years further along than this one.
Any other comments, questions?
I just have one safety complex. So if we're dealing with fire, go ahead. Well, my safety complex one just deals back with, we're talking about renovations, and I'm just curious how the floor in the police department garage is holding up after we had to replace it there about 4 or 5 years ago because of all the rot and stuff caused by salt and water.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it's holding up very well. I do think we're going to have to replace the door from the garage to the hallway at some point in the near future, and I think Robin's aware of that. It looks like it's almost, to me, it's delaminating a little bit, which could be from water spray when they wash the police cars, or any number of things. But the floor itself is holding up well. We do have some money appropriated in fiscal 20 to do some renovations to the front entrance, which would include some trim work around the overhead doors leading into the police garage, to kind of, I'll say, pretty that up a little bit. The wood toward the bottom is rotted, most likely from water too, but the floor itself is holding up very well.
Good.
Any other questions, Bruce?
You're on mute.
Or mute.
Thank you. Now I've forgotten again. Oh, I know. Those estimates, Chief, they were given to you this year after the virus has taken its toll?
No, these estimates were all from the fall when it was time to submit the capital budget. I do generally try to include anywhere from a 3 to 5% increase when I submit my budget, just to take into account any land pricing increases. But to answer your question, these are from the fall.
Actually, I would think maybe we'd be more worried about the delivery times. You don't think those were affected?
On the, are you asking specifically on the fire pumper?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that one I can tell you. I've been in contact with vendors up to as recently as today, and that information that I just shared with you about the potential to have one as early as the fall is accurate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve.
You said fall 2021. You meant fall 2020.
I did. I apologize. Thanks, Mike. Fall of this year. Fall of 2020.
Oh, yeah, I heard that myself. Okay. Anything else on the fire pumper? The fire department also has a few things in betterment. So I'm going to turn to that.
Madam Chair, just one point.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
The cameras are wired cameras. They are not wireless.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
I think the first thing for the fire is special events overtime. I believe that's an annual request, isn't it, Chief?
It is, and again, to be quite honest, that number is going to go down. I haven't had the opportunity to recalculate it, but for example, I know Jeff is aware of this, but we received word recently that the Pan Mass is not going to happen this year. So I do have funding in this betterment request that would cover my detail at the Pan Mass, as well as some events in the month of July. And we're kind of playing really it by ear, but the number that you see that's requested is probably going to go down. I just haven't had a chance to recalculate.
Okay. And then the firefighting gear with you, is that what you alluded to earlier, the 13?
Yes. And so
in 2023?
Well, the gear would be good and would be have to be replaced in 23, which means that I would be looking to make the purchase, probably toward the end of 22, fiscal 22.
Oh, okay.
It really depends. I believe that gear was bought in April of 2013, which means technically April of 23 it would have to be replaced. And there is a lead time, for that. So it could be as late as 23.
Okay.
So are we doing a similar concept, putting money aside for the breathing apparatus? Because I know those have timelines too, and we replaced them all within the 3-year timeline. So that means coming up in like 7 years, we're going to start that 3-year timeline over again.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that step yet. And my plan is that in the AFG, the Assistance for Firefighters Grant, that we will apply for in fiscal 21, we will start trying to plan ahead for that SCBA replacement as well and start acquiring new SCBAs. I'd like to try and do it as a phase-in as opposed to a lump sum, and this is the reason, so that we're not looking at $125,000 at a clip to replace SCBA.
Right.
If I can do it as a planned phase-in, has a lot less impact on the budget.
I'm with you there.
Okay, the next one is bleeding control training training kits for $950.
This is actually a nationwide program called Stop the Bleed that the state coordinator came to me and said, I think it would be something that's good for the community if we held these classes. And I know it's not a large amount of money, and if it's it's fiscally uneasy as we are today, if this is something that needs to come out of the operating budget, I'm sure I can find this out of the operating budget, but I felt that it absolutely qualified as a betterment request.
Kathy?
Larry?
Yeah, I've taken that training, and I can tell you that it is absolutely an excellent idea. Years and years and years ago, the idea was to have CPR training among as many people in the general population as could be. To Stop the Bleed is conceptually, physically different, but conceptually the same idea. And the training is not elaborate, it doesn't take long, and there's really almost no equipment involved, which is the beauty of, for no money at all, so to speak, you can, it may sound melodramatic, but you could end having an amputation. That's really true.
Anybody else? Then I think the last one is the ventilation saw for $3,000, and that's for a replacement, Chief?
Yes. So we had two of these saws. These are the saws that we would use to cut a hole in the roof of a burning building, and one of the saws failed on us and was non-repairable. So we're looking to replace that.
Any questions on that one? I think that is it for you, Chief. So if there's nothing more for the chief, we can let him get on with his night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chief, for staying on with us.
Thank you, Chief. Absolutely. Have a good night.
You too. All right, well, it is after 9. We ready to call it a night?
Yeah, so before we do that, I'm curious about your plan going forward then as far as the rest of the line item budget and then dealing with the warrant items since we've gotten the warrant today.
Right, well, I would hope that we could finish the line item budget next week, so that might be a little, well, I hope we can. And then start on the annual town meeting. And I have looked at the schedule for Tuesday nights, and it looks like at least in the next 3 weeks, there is already meetings on that night, either planning or conservation. We really can't squeeze in there. So at the moment, we're sort of locked into Thursdays unless we want to pick a different night. But again, Mondays are often selectmen. I haven't really looked at the other nights yet. Really, it's only Wednesday. But is the town meeting definitely June 29th, Jeff?
Yes, the Board of Selectmen have voted to place the meeting on the 29th of June.
So it gives us a bit of time, but we are getting a little extra time. But, I mean, I do think that, you know, a number of the ATM articles are articles that we have every year, so we can certainly knock those out pretty quickly. We'll go from there.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, we can wait till next meeting, but I was just thinking, make hay while the sun's shining here and start nailing those ones that can get out of the way, like Article 1. You know?
Well, we could, but I mean, yeah, we can, but, you know, I would hope to start doing that next week.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm willing to wait a week.
It is getting late, and I don't believe we have minutes. I think we're going to have those next week. from what I
Over
understand.
minutes.
Joanne. And otherwise, is there any old business? Any new business?
I think we hit the new business when we talked about that engineering line item.
That's probably true, yep. And that's it. There a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so moved.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear who it was.
Give it to Jared and Mike, because Jared was up first. He was there right away.
Mike, all right. Roll call vote, Larry?
Oh, I guess so.
You look tired, Larry. Jared?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Bruce?
She's
I think
saying,
she said yes. She's
Yes,
saying yes.
I said yes.
Aaron?
yes.
And Kathy, yes. So that's 9-0 at 9:11. We are adjourned. We will see you next Thursday. Try to finish this up and start on the HEM.
Bye.
Stay well, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.